Welcome back to the show. I'm Chris Hayes, sitting in tonight for Rachel. Now, when I agreed to guest host, I did it on one condition, that we would do a segment about Hill star and semi-professional partygoer Heidi Montag. And here I am. So, welcome to Montag Talk. Our inaugural segment finds the bizarre pseudo-celebrity world Heidi lives in strangely intersecting the one the rest of us occupy. Because today, Heidi is stumping for financial reform. Yes, Heidi Montag is putting her every bit of her substantial power as a kinda, sorta, somewhat famous-ish person into pushing for a consumer financial protection agency.
With hidden fees and standard interest rate increases, that $11,000 jawline can end up costing you an upwards of $50,000. Being in debt for elective surgery is bad enough, but when I think about the thousands of Americans whose only method of paying for food is their credit cards, it's enough to make me cry without moving my new face. That's why I support the creation of a consumer agency to help protect average citizens and reality stars alike. A consumer agency will stop banks and credit card companies from being such sleazy jerks. Call your senator and tell them to hold big Wall Street banks accountable and to fight for strong consumer protection.
Okay, so why does this proposed consumer watchdog agency need Heidi's help? Because Senator Chris Dodd, the Democrat in charge of the Banking Committee, is working on a financial reform compromise with Republican Senator Bob Corker. And Senator Corker said on the record going into those negotiations that he could not support a standalone consumer financial protection agency. In other words, Senator Dodd is very likely whittling away at the consumer agency to try to bring Corker on board. And the best evidence yet that that's what's going on? News from Senator Corker today that they've almost reached a deal on the agency. Here, for your viewing pleasure, is his warm-up victory lap on CNBC today.
I don't think we ought to try to pass legislation that solves every problem in the world. I think when we do that, we end up with things like is happening right now with health care reforms.
In fact, the financial reform debate is a lot like health care reform debate, but not for the reason Bob Corker says. Here's the real analogy. The Consumer Financial Protection Agency is the new public option. Both the public option and the consumer agency would have meant major changes for a major industry. And both industries have half-heartedly pretended to support reform in theory, but often fought tooth and nail against it. And both industries focused the fight on that one piece of reform that would have meant a new source of power over them, something independent, and something they couldn't subvert. And so far, in both cases, it's looking kind of like Democrats are going to cave. Joining us now is Heather McGhee. She is director of the Washington office of Demos, a nonpartisan research and advocacy group. Heather, thanks so much for coming to the show.
Thanks, Chris, for having me.
So an independent agency to protect consumers seems like a very popular idea. Why would Republicans be fighting against it? And maybe more perplexingly, why would Democrats want to abandon it?
I'll take the easy one first. I really think that it's very popular. 75% of Americans recognize that the banks and the payday lenders have been gouging them for years as the federal government has looked the other way, and really support a strong, independent consumer financial protection agency. We have to realize that Republicans and all people in Congress have more than one set of constituents. They have the voters who are paying attention sometimes, and the donors and the lobbyists who are paying attention all the time. And they've been swarming Congress for the past year, ever since the financial crisis, trying to weaken and ultimately kill a consumer financial protection agency.
So those banks that have been trying to kill this thing, and they've been going at it with hatchets from the very beginning, what is it they're so afraid of? Why are they fighting so hard against it?
What we've seen is over the past 30 years, there's really been a really radical experiment in financial deregulation across the board. But at the consumer level, there's just a new Wild West situation out there where the banks, the payday lenders, the rent-to-own stores, the used auto dealers have just basically had very little oversight. And they've profited from that regime.
Right.
The financial crisis has absolutely shown that that was not only bad for consumers, it was bad for Wall Street, it was bad for the entire country, and they know that the jig is up unless they can beat down a consumer protection agency.
So then what is your sense, and I know that you have been working with a lot of groups on the Hill, what is your sense of where the Consumer Financial Protection Agency stands?
I think we're at a very critical point. You mentioned health care. Unfortunately, I really think that the financial reform battle has really been being waged in the shadow of health care. The American people shouldn't have to learn that there's a fight going on for their wallets from Heidi Montag and the SNL presidents, but they have. I mean, really, I think that most Americans, if they knew what the stakes were, that there was payday lenders and subprime mortgage companies on one hand and a Consumer Financial Protection Agency on the other hand, would be really outraged. But the Democrats haven't been able to take the mic and make that contrast clear. And so we've got backroom deals right now. We've really got Senator Dodd really wants to make a deal, and he's going to give away, I think, a real opportunity to make a very clear contrast and say, hey, this is what the Democratic Party stands for, and it's you and your family, your retirement savings, and your home. Republicans are trying to gut investor protections, consumer protections. They're trying to stand up for the subprime lenders and the payday lenders. I mean, this should be a very easy political fight. So I think if we can make that political fight more visible to the American people, and it's really just starting to heat up, then I think we're going to have a stronger hand to try to get this consumer agency passed.
Well, Heather, maybe we can get a Lady Gaga video on the internet in favor of the agency. Heather McGhee, Washington Director of the Nonpartisan Research Group Demos, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Chris.